Oi, oi, right, how's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodle Review coming through with a new album to give a spin, chat some wrath about, and then assign an arbitrary score to. Today, we're going to talk about Mahashmashana, the latest album from Father John Misty. Now, I've always thought of Father John Misty, aka Josh Tillman, like a poet in the truest sense of the word, or even a novelist. His lyrics are thoughtful, eloquently written, with amazing command of vocabulary, working on multiple levels. He's often describing one sometimes asinine thing, but meaning something much more profound at the same time. Equally, the albums themselves are constructed around distinct themes. Sometimes he weaves one long narrative, like the romantic tale of meeting, falling for, and marrying his wife on I Love You, Honey Bear, but more often builds what you could compare to like a composite novel, where each song is a new chapter that shares themes and a world with the others, but don't necessarily interlink or tell a linear story. Pure Comedy took this approach for a political and societal deconstruction, and God's Favorite Customer took that route for an exploration of depression. The last record, 2022's Chloe in the Next 20th Century, in some respects was an out and out anthology or book of short stories. Choosing the tonal and stylistic backdrop of 1940s big band songwriting, Tillman wrote each song like its own novella. While you could infer personal introspection and some societal commentary, the Next 20th Century mostly followed a cast of characters that could have fallen out of a lost black and white Hollywood movie. The choice of traditional early 20th century aesthetics for everything from the instrumentation to the arrangements supported that, but made the record quite difficult to get into. Eventually, I was won over by the aching romance of tracks like Kiss Me, I Loved You, and Buddy's Rendezvous, and the title track, which almost inexplicably drops back into a more typical Father John Misty style. But those merits aside, it's still not one I often find myself going back to start to finish. With that in mind, a first play of Mahashmashana brought with it a wave of relief and a tingle of excitement as it became clear Tillman had clearly brought things back to a familiar stylistic territory. The tracks here are mainly piano driven, but psychedelic, they're rock tinged with occasional gestures towards the blues, and I'm glad for it. Not because I don't want to be challenged and wouldn't be interested in Tillman taking, another genre detour, but just because it's a style that sounds great. You can do infinite things with food, but sometimes you just want steak. Considering this artist's deep lyrical constructs and themes that often require a bit of study if you want to kind of like engage with it's also nice to connect easily with the musical backdrop of those lyrics. She Cleans Up, in particular, with its dark, cynical electric piano groove, punctuated by cowbells and guitar stabs, is an immediate crowd pleaser for fans. Inspired by the Viagra Boys punk rock loser so much that the Swedish band actually get a co-write here, this one is a banger and an immediate sardonic Misty classic. It has a high energy chorus with a great vocal delivery that alternates between these forceful I know how to the syncopated, almost rapt approach to the following lines. While the record mostly plays in a stylistic sandbox he knows will keep the fans entertained, the instrumentation does do some colouring outside the lines, to mix metaphors. The album's centerpiece and clear highlight Screamland drenches its cathartic melancholy in lush, washed out synths and anchors it in filtered digital beats. It couldn't actually be more different to the rest of the record, but it totally works, and each chorus hits you like an ocean wave. The title of the record, Mahashmashana, is a Sanskrit word that refers to a great cremation ground. And in an interview with Blackbird Spy Plane, Tillman says that after Chloe in the Next 20th Century was about erasing himself from the work, that this work is about erasing himself. Typically deep, I found myself pondering what that means almost as much as the album itself. Studying the lyrics thematically, I suppose you could say that the theme tying it all together is Tillman coming to terms and making peace with the paradoxes of our modern life, in a way erasing his need to fight against everything that's fucked and just be. But as a listener, I find even in taking the less confrontational and observational position, Tillman's unique perspective and way of phrasing things makes his presence in the narrative no less imposing than it ever has been before. If his goal is an erasure of ego or self, I don't think he's succeeded, but that's all for our benefit. Take a song like Mental Health, for instance. On this track, Tillman dissects our modern perspective and societal embrace of mental well-being. And while, yes, I suppose he does erase himself in the sense that we don't get an opinion as to whether this is positive or negative, he does drop some pretty profound insights around how our fixation with identity and authenticity is manipulated for corporate gains. Just going through these lyrics makes me think differently. He uses the term panopticon, and all of a sudden, my mind is like just catching fire about this concept and how it relates to society. This is in itself his influence on the subject matter, and it's his personal desire to outsmart the status quo and inherently ego-driven exercise that drives so this. Again, I say, Mr. Tillman, you're far from erased from this work, and I don't even know how you would do that, but long may it continue. As you can tell, I'm quite fond of the record, but if I am to make a critique, it would be a paradoxical one, because as much as I earlier went off about how cool it is to hear Tillman back in a familiar stylistic territory, there are more than a couple of moments that feel quite self-referential. She Cleans Up, Love It Though I Do, really reminded me of earlier Misty tracks like Date Night, and Summer's Gone sound like an infinite number of tracks in the artist's catalogue. On the whole, though, this delivers everything I love about Father John Misty's work. It's deep, it's insightful, it gets me thinking, and it's all packaged into an emotional or swaggery track and approach that, for someone as smart as Josh Tillman, it just doesn't seem fair that he has any right to be as capable of doing that. But he is. I'm going to give it an 8.5 and knock it on the head. That's just what I think, though. What are you lot saying? Let me know in the comments. Check the description for links to other reviews you might be interested in. And if you can be asked to do all of that, well, then you may as well subscribe, stick around, share some thoughts, show some love, or just hold some abuse in the comments. Other than that, all that remains for me to say is, mind how you go, mate. Take care. Cheers, then.